Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in this session. You are now in the parallel session on data-driven innovation in the agri-food sector. Where are we? And this title is because basically we want to understand everything that is being done now in the agri-food sector when it comes to data. Let me start the session with some housekeeping rules. This is important for everyone. I ask everyone to be muted and not to use the camera unless you are talking. For questions, please use the Q&A option of the web platform, and you can also make your comments during the session in the chat. So use those tools, and I will be paying attention to that in case you want to bring some questions to the speakers. Then if you have any technical issue, I have included here the email of the person from BDVA that will be supporting us. So please don't hesitate also to put a comment in the chat in case you need some support. And then something that is very important and all people always ask in all the sessions is that basically this session will be recorded. So it will be available for all of you and you will be able to check the contents afterwards. Presentations will also be uploaded based on the consent from the speaker. So you don't need to copy, you don't need to make pictures, everything will be available for you. So don't worry about that. Just enjoy the session and try to interact and to exchange views with us. I would also like to thank our sponsors. I think that we are having a wonderful edition of the European Big Data Value Forum. This is one of the things thanks to our sponsors that are supporting us from a financial point of view, and even more important from the content point of view with a lot of interesting sessions so far. And let me go directly to the content of the session because we have just 90 minutes to cover a lot of things. My name is Nuria Delama. I'm European Programs Manager at Atos. I'm also a member of the Board of Directors of the Big Data Value Association. And something that is quite relevant to this session is that I'm leading the working group on data for agriculture, where I hope that many of the inputs that will be provided today will be integrated. Today, we count on a wonderful set of panelists. And we will really have to do very good time management to be sure that all of them have the opportunities to explain their messages and their work. We will start with Giorgio Micheletti, who is Consulting Director at IDC. He will tell us a bit about how the market looks like and also the penetration of some of these technologies in the agri-food sector. Then we will go to a series of short presentations on different initiatives and different projects that are working directly on data-related aspects for the agri-food sector. And specifically, we will go to Ioana Rousakis, who is Assistant Professor at the National Technical University of Athens. She is also working in the DEMETER project that is working heavily on data and on data sharing, and she will explain this approach to us. Then we will go directly to Ana Antunes. She is agronomist and working in an SME in Spain called Smart Rural. She is also working in one of the use cases of the AI for EU project, focused specifically on agriculture. You know that AI for EU is the AI on-demand platform. You may have heard about this project quite a lot. I think this is one of the first opportunities we have to get some insights about this project in this community. Then we will have Panos Ilias. He's IT business analyst working for ILVO, and ILVO has initiated an initiative called DJAS Connect on data sharing. So we are really keen to know more about that. We will also have Sander Jensen with us. He is working for Wageningen Environmental Research, the team Health Informatics, and he is also a member of one of the relevant projects to this sector, like it is NIVA, working very much on topics on how to use data for the common agricultural policy. And we will close somehow this session with Arne Berre. He's working for SINTEF. He's also leading the technical working group in BDVA and very much engaged in DEMETER. But today, I think, Arne, you will explain to us basically the baseline of the Data Bio project. And for those who do not know it, Data Bio is the largest scale pilot focused on bioeconomy and funded by the data program. So we will learn a bit more about that and also the relationships between Data Bio, who is already finished, and DEMETER. But finally, I think that all of us want to understand the agri-food sector from a more holistic way, from a more holistic perspective. And we don't want just to have technology push initiatives. We want to understand what is the view of the users. Finally, farmers will have to adopt all these solutions. And in order to create a discussion and to understand the two perspectives, I have invited two representatives, farmers. The first one is Luisa Volpe. She's head of policy development at the World Farmers Organization. And then we will have Rita, I don't know how to pronounce it, working for Coldiretti, a farmers association in Italy. So I think this will provide a quite complementary perspective on the different topics we will cover today. So I'm really happy about this set of speakers. Let me introduce the objectives for the session. And like this, I also give like some initial questions to our speakers. So some of the things we would like to understand today is which data sets are being used nowadays for what exactly? Because of course, we want to understand what is the benefit of using these data sets. Do we have high quality data in Europe? Do we have them, but it is underused? Are we really doing data sharing in the agri-food domain? Do we need this? Maybe there's no need for that. Which are the major technical and non-technical challenges to manage data? One of the important things today is understanding the baseline created by initiatives and projects in the domain. We don't want to start from scratch every time we get a project. We want to understand what is already available and try to reuse and adopt as much as possible. Promote collaboration between different projects in different areas, because so far, every time I organized one of these sessions, I was counting on projects either from the IoT domain or from the big data domain. Today, what I tried to do was bring in some projects from the big data portfolio, but also from the AI portfolio, IoT and digital transformation. So I think it's a great opportunity to put together what we have and try to discuss among us. And then one of the aspects that I highlighted to our speakers is that you know that there is a hot topic now, which is the one of common European agricultural data space. So I'd like to understand if you have views based on the work you are doing on how such a common European agriculture data space should look like. Should it be one? Should we talk about several spaces? And then, as I mentioned before, something that is very important and I want to highlight in this session is a multidisciplinary view, and also the views coming from both supply and demand. So representation of both is also an objective for this session. There are some pointers for the people that are attending the session today. The position paper created by BDVA on data sharing. I think this is very important and relevant to the topic we will discuss today. And then the report provided by the European Commission based on a workshop that focused some weeks ago on common European agricultural data space. So both of the papers are there for your reference, and I hope that they will be also a good input to start the discussion today. Without further delay, I would like again to say thank you to all our speakers and to go directly to Giorgio Micheletti from IDC. Giorgio, are you ready to share the content with us?
I am, but you have to give me 1 second. I need to find my presentations to do the
I stopped sharing my screen.
Yes, thank you.
Allow you to share. So we are really keen to listening to you.
Okay, so let me see. I think you see my screen now.
We see it now. Perfectly.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So thank you, Nuria, for inviting me to this session, and thank you also for inviting me to the EBDF 2020 altogether, and a big thanks also to all of you that are attending this session today. We have a very intensive program and we have little time, so I'll try to be very quick, but I have an advantage perhaps with respect to the others. My role here is to provide you with a very top level overview of what is underpinning digital transformation and data-driven innovation in the agri-food sector. So it's going to be a very, very general introduction. We have many possibilities and many sources to explain and to provide evidence on digital transformations in the agri-food sector. I come from IDC. IDC is a market research international company focusing on ICT ICT technologies, and of course we look into the agri-food sector as well. But perhaps today I'd like to take some of the results or present you some of the results that IDC together with other partners is developing in the ATI project. ATI stands for Advanced Technologies for Industries, and advanced technologies are precisely those technologies that are underpinning and make it possible digital transformations across industries in Europe and therefore across the agricultural sector. The the topic or the main aim of this research, of this study, is to systematically monitor the technological trends, but also the uptake, so the actual adoption of these technologies across the European industries and in the agricultural sector as well. And obviously this has to be considered within the, say, the broader scope of some of the key initiatives that the European Commission is currently promoting since the beginning of the year. So I've mentioned here the Shaping Europe's Digital Future initiatives together with the European Strategy for Data, and more importantly, perhaps the European Green Deal, because when we talk agriculture, we need always to be very careful to the environmental and sustainability aspects related to this sector. So what are the technologies, the so-called advanced technologies that are underpinning digital transformation and data-driven innovation in Europe and also in the agricultural sectors? Well, here is the list. I'm not going into the details of that, but I simply put in bold and circled those technologies that appear to have a major role precisely in the agricultural sectors. And as you can see, we have some of these technologies that are, I would say, more horizontal in nature, that are instrumental. So obviously you can't talk about digital transformation if you don't have cloud computing or advanced connectivities, or if security is not ensured. But we also have some more industry specific and more specific advanced technologies like the Internet of Things, or like artificial intelligence and big data and analytics. And we will see how these play out in the agri-food sector. Now, when we look at digitizations and industry modernizations in Europe across sectors, some of the results that the project has prepared or presented are shown in this slide. So here you can see on the left-hand side, so the list of the 16 advanced technologies, and then you see all the sectors, and you can see easily that these technologies plays a role in all of these sectors, but in different to different extents. And if you look at the size of the bubbles, this indicates the level of uptake or adoptions of these technologies across these different sectors. You can see that clearly all sectors are undergoing a strong effort of digital transformation, but their actual extent depends on maturity, depends on the relevance and the existence of actually industry-specific applications, because sometimes you don't have the real use case to use these applications in all the industries. And of course, it depends also from the business and the operational and the societal needs of these industries. Some of these industries are more societal oriented. I'm thinking of, I don't know, education, government in general, and healthcare. Some are less, or they have a less direct link. If we look, and this is the core perhaps of my presentation, if we look specifically on agriculture, and I've highlighted it on your right-hand side, then you can see again, a vast panoply of all these technologies play a role, but some of them really stand out. And if we look at cloud computing, clearly, I said the infrastructure needs to be there, security, but also big data and analytics, and I would say most importantly, IoT. Plus we have advanced connectivity features and solutions that need to be there. Artificial intelligence, always more and more on the rise, and to a lesser extent, robotics as well. So why these technologies, and what are these technologies doing? Again, I'm trying to be very quick here, but all boils down to the concept of precision agriculture, and I'm sure that my colleagues here today will go perhaps more in details into this concept. But the use of IoT sensors, for example, but also drones and satellites in farm equipment is clearly pushing or making it happen and bringing about a digital transformation in the agricultural sectors, where the processes, the farming processes, are being revolutionized and minimizing costs, reducing the use of pesticides, for example, and other waste, and maximizing inputs. They also have an impact in how we track and trace the value chains across the agri-food sector. In other words, they are adding quality and also security and safety in what we eventually will find in the supermarket shelves and we buy as a produce and as a product of the agri-food sector. So this is the fundamental element. Now, the results that I just shown are taken from a survey that was conducted at the end of last year. We're now conducting a new survey along more or less the same lines. But the key point is that if we analyze the data further, we can cluster the results across four main clusters, four main groups. And you can see on the right hand of this picture, we've got the innovators. So the innovators are those that not only use and have a high level of adoption and uptake of these advanced technologies, but they also have a high extent of co-presence of these technologies. In other words, it's not just a matter of using one of them. It's not just a matter of applying artificial intelligence, for example, but it's a matter of applying artificial intelligence with big data and perhaps with robotics. This leads to a very strong level of data-driven innovation and the digital transformations. On the other hand, right side, we have what we call rather nicely the investigators, and the investigators are those that, yes, they're still wait and see. They have not made a lot of investment, and they have a sort of resistance to innovation. So they're clearly laggards in this respect. Where,
1 minute, Giorgio. Sorry to interrupt you.
It's almost finished. Where does, according to you, what do you think? Where does agriculture find itself? Well, agriculture is not surprisingly among the so-called investigators, because the results that I can show you today, and again, they will be they are recasted, and we will have new data in a few weeks. Show that 2/3 of the respondents in the agricultural sectors are clearly in the first phrase. But this is not so tragic, I would say, in the sense that it's not a surprise. The agricultural sector is, as we know, a sector that until recently was not making a big use of ICT. It also has cultural resistance. In Europe, it has fragmentations and perhaps other issues in terms of availability of skills and the size of the farming plots, for example. But the phenomena that I try to describe in the so-called precision agricultures and the renewed attention that policymakers in the European Commission, in particular with the European Green Deal, well, are all moving into a direction of reinforced digital transformation for the agri-food sector. So not only there is hope, but I think we should expect big developments in this field. And I think with that, I'm finished, because I had just one more slide, and I just wanted to show you this, where you can have, if you go on this website, you can have more information on this data and on specific reports, also on the agri-food sector from the ATI project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giorgio. So if I understood well, based on your analysis, agri-food is now the sector that has the worst picture, let's say like that, in terms of digital transformation, so a lot of room to improve.
It's not, it's not alone in this representation. It has a lot of way to go, but it's definitely on the right path. That's my message.
Nice to get this message, and we will see later on if our colleagues, especially Luis and Rita, agree with this, and they tell us maybe the reason why these technologies have not been adopted or are just in that earlier stage in the sector. Thank you very much, Giorgio. Let's go directly to the projects and to the initiatives that will tell us what is available nowadays, or what are the current approaches and proposals in order to deal with data in the sector. And for this, I would like to call Joanna Rusaki from she's working in DEMETER, and I think that, Joanna, you will present us precisely the approach by the DEMETER project.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Now it's coming, I think. Thanks a lot. For all our colleagues, please, now we see Agri portal. You're sharing your screen, not the presentation. For all our speakers, please notice that I know you have a lot of things to say, but unfortunately the session has a limited time. So we will not be able to say everything you want to say. But also to the colleagues that are attending the session today, let me tell you that it would be very good if you could share your initiatives and your work in the chat on the WOBA platform, because that will stay for everyone. So it's also a way to do publicity and give visibility to the work you are doing, even though you are not a speaker. Joanna, yeah, we were seeing your screen, but not the presentation.
Can you now see the slides?
It's coming, let's see, yeah.
Is it,
put it in presentation mode.
is it on full screen now?
No, not yet. We see, now it's good. Okay, perfect, go ahead.
Okay, hi everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you, Maria, for the kind invitation. I'm very happy to be presenting the DEMETER approach in this very large event that you have been organizing. I'm a professor at the National Technical University of Athens in Greece, and we are one of the partners in the DEMETER consortium. DEMETER is one of the flagship projects of the European Union. It aims to build an interoperable, data-driven, innovative, and sustainable European agri-food sector. And we're aiming to evaluate this, to validate this via 20 large-scale pilots that engage more than 5,000 of farmers, more than 300,000 of hectares of land, several countries, and so on. You see here the landscape of the foreseen pilots in DEMETER. Our 20 pilots are structured in 5 clusters, each focusing on different subsector and each having a different goal with regards to demonstrating the innovations of the DEMETER project. So the first one focuses on arable crops, but the main target here is to demonstrate optimal resource allocation and minimization, including water and energy management. Second pilot cluster also tackles arable crops, but here the focus is on agricultural machinery and precision farming, precision agriculture. Third one tackles fruit and vegetables. And here the goal is to improve the quality of the yield. Fourth one tackles livestock and focuses on animal health and high quality of animal products. And finally, we have a cross-sectorial pilot cluster that tackles the entire supply chain and aims to highlight some, to demonstrate some interoperability solutions that we provide in DEMETER, also engaging robotics. So I mentioned interoperability. Of course, as Giorgio said, we engage a wealth of technologies in agriculture nowadays, ranging from IoT, big data, AI, robotics, cloud and edge computing, advanced connectivity elements, and so on. The main problem that does not permit us so far to fully exploit the potential of all these nice and rich technologies is that we still have not managed to tackle interoperability. It remains a huge challenge. These technologies do not bridge well, do not interact well, and we have huge populations of farm management systems that cannot talk to one another. So DEMETER aims, among others, to deliver a reference architecture that aims to tackle this interoperability challenge. And furthermore, with regards to the data frame, to deliver the AIM, the so-called DEMETER Agriculture Information Model, that is built on several well-known standards and ontologies, and aims to provide the grounds for establishing semantic interoperability. So the rest of the presentation spans through these two directions. On the one hand, the DEMETER architecture, on the other hand, the AIM. I know I have very little time, so very fast. Our concept in the reference architecture we have delivered includes mainly three elements. The first one is the stakeholder open collaboration space, the so-called SOCs. That is a node-led sharing and co-creation space. This is the basis for our multi-actor approach and aims to bring all stakeholders at the center of the system and allow them to co-create the all resources to be delivered to them by our system. We have the agriculture interoperability space, the AIS. This is targeting the needs of developers and providers, and this is where the interoperability challenges are dealt with. And on the heart of the DEMETER system, we have the enabler hub, where all providers can register their resources that make available to interested consumers, and the consumers can discover what the so-called DEMETER providers are making available. I'm skipping this, diving into the DEMETER reference architecture instantiation. Here you see the resources made available. It spans from hardware resources, small sensors, large devices, even agricultural machinery, to software resources, pieces of service logic, or entire platforms. And even you see here public resources linked or open data that are made available. On the top, we have the AIs. I have highlighted this because I want the focus of the presentation here to be addressing the interoperability challenge via the DEMETER project. There are several enablers, some mandatory, some optional, that among others tackle the semantic and syntactic interoperability challenges that I aforementioned. And on top of that, we have the applications that are delivered based on the resources made available from the interested providers, as well as the exploitation of the DEMETER enablers that we provide. And these are to be used by the interested consumers that are farmers, agronomists, providers, regulatory bodies, and so on. This gives a snapshot of what DEMETER enhanced entity would look like. And I zoom in here in the core, in other words, the mandatory enablers that are deployed. You see here that for a resource, which means a platform, thing, service, or application, to be compliant with DEMETER, to be able to talk, let's say, DEMETER language, they need to have deployed the communication networking enabler, functional interoperability enabler, semantic interoperability enabler, and of course, cater also for security protection. On top of that, there is the AIM that I aforementioned that also needs to be installed, let's say, at the resource provider side, so that the exchange of information is made seamlessly based on this model. I'm not going to go in detail in this layered architecture approach for the advanced or optional enablers, just highlight the ones that have to do with data handling. And they range from data collection and preparation to data integration, data management, even data analytics, data fusion, and so on. Of course, data security and governance are present as well. Moving on to the AIM, this is split in 4 parts. Very fast. This is based on the well-known NGSI LD layered approach. However, it aims to exploit the available standards and well-known ontologies that are available, and does not plan to reinvent the wheel. So the core meta model is on top of the cross-domain ontology that actually is built on the well-known SOSA SSN for sensor data, the OGC standards for capturing geographic information, the W3C for temporal elements, and QUDT for capturing the measurement units and so on. Below, the cross-domain ontology that captures the generic high-level concepts that we need to model the information handled in the agri-food domain. There is the domain-specific ontology layer that is actually built on several, let's say, packages of information, 10, if I'm not mistaken, ranging from agri-crop, agri-product, livestock, pest system that actually handles the devices and machinery. As you can see, we have built in a model that exploits the standards that are available and are dominant in the agri-food domain. We have established links and mappings, alignments between AIM and the FIWARE Agri data models, the CIRE for Agri, Inspire and Foodie, AgroVoc, Earth observation standards, and there are more on this list that are currently being tackled. I would like
to finish, Joanna. Sorry.
Okay. You can find our model online on the Agro portal. You can browse across its classes, properties, and mappings. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me or the project. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Very interesting. In fact, I had some questions and you have answered them through your presentation, because I suppose that the information model is really essential to achieve interoperability, but only if there is consensus around that. So it's very good that DEMETER has not started from scratch to define a new information model, but you are really capitalizing all the existing initiatives. So that's very good. Maybe for people that are interested in the project, there is an open call for SMEs and startups that have technologies that can be useful to this sector. The open call will close on the 18th of November. This morning there was a webinar. I will put the information on the chat, but in any case, you can visit the website of the DEMETER project in case you are interested in applying to the open call. There are 300,000 euro available for SMEs that can provide interesting technologies to the project. So thank you very much, Joanna. I think that Joanna will have to leave the session before we finish. So if you have a burning question for her, please put it in the Q&A or the chat and I will translate it to her, okay? Thanks a lot. Thanks, Joanna. So then let's go to our next speaker, Ana Antunes. She's working for Smart Rural and she is running a use case in the agri-food area in the context of the AI4U project. AI4U is this project on the AI on-demand platform. So you will tell us a bit the way you are using artificial intelligence in this particular sector, and are you really doing data sharing, or based on your experience, we can say that there is a data sharing now happening in the sector? How far we are from that?
I will share my presentation with you, first of all. 1 second.
I think that in fact you will present a use case, so we will see technologies really on the ground.
Indeed. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, but not in presentation mode yet.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's perfect.
Now it's on. Okay. So I'm an agronomist in Smart Rural company. It's an SME that it's dedicated to improve the efficiency and the profitability of agricultural holdings, using mostly information and communication technologies. Lately, we combine digital technologies with referenced aerial data from drones or from satellites, and agricultural insights. That means data from farmers, for example, and we create software innovation solutions for precision agriculture. On the last year, we start developing our own farm management system that allows farmers to make the data-driven operational decisions to optimize yield, increase revenue, and at the same time minimizing expenses and avoiding loss in crop production. So we are participating on the IE4EU, that it's a project, an H2020 project from the European Union that aims to build an European artificial intelligence platform, an ecosystem on demand that will facilitate the collaboration between the member states. And with this technology, the aim is to build a platform that will allow to innovate and to solve technical challenges for industrial applications. We are it's 8 pilots. We are on the agricultural pilot, where we will assess the crop quality through computer vision, and not only the crop quality, but as well do fruit counting for the crop as well, in order to help farmers to make decisions regarding the production, the maximum yield possible that they will have, and as well to manage the quality and the quality of that production. On this pilot, we are working with Atos. Atos is the leader of this pilot, as well with the Aerospatial Center from Germany, the University of Catalonia, and from Athens. The vineyards that agreed to work with us on this project are 3 vineyards from the Ribera de Duero region in Spain, that it's a really famous region. And they are Prado Rey, Vizcarra, and Martín Verdugo, and these are the 3 vineyards that agreed on sharing their data, their historical data, and also allowing us to do the tests and the pilot on their vineyards. For this pilot for agriculture, as I said, we will work on vineyards because are the ones that were easier for us, the members of this team, to work with. In Smart Rural, we work mostly with vineyards, and we will develop 2 models with algorithms, one for fruit counting and another for grape quality assessment. So the one for fruit counting, it's basically, we started the pilot this summer, where we developed an application to take pictures from the grapes. We take 6 geolocated pictures from each side of the plant, and at the same time we were flying with a drone. So we collected a multispectral imagery from the vineyard, and as well sentinel imagery. We selected when we selected the plants that were going to be sampled, we selected based on the sentinel imagery, and also we are going to cross this information with the final production of the vineyard. We have other analysis that we collected as well, but the most important, it's the number of clusters per plant. So we gathered this information with our teammates from Catalonia, for example, that they devised QR codes in order to identify each plant. Our colleagues from the are going to analyze the sentinel imagery, the images from the satellites. And with that, we hope to validate next year the pilot with these images. We have more than 6,000 images collected only this summer. So we are hoping with that to feed this algorithm and to have some interesting results in order to create this artificial intelligence model for the AI4EU platform. Also, this is, for example, the application that we developed where we could select the plant. Every plant was labeled, and we would choose the size, the view from which we were taking the photos and how many clusters, and we would take 3 pictures from each side. And later on, our colleagues from the University of Antenas, of the University of Catalonia, and Atos will help us in the part of labeling all the clusters. It's something that we are working in right now, because there are some challenges regarding the images, things such as because the clusters are really together. It's difficult sometimes to differentiate the clusters from one plant and the other plant. The leaves sometimes hide the cluster, so it's what we are working actually right now. And then we have the second model for grape quality assessment. So for the same plants where we collected the images, we also collected analysis from the grapes. We collected several grapes from each cluster, and they were analyzed in laboratory where things such as pH or the Brix were analyzed. And this will help later on to correlate these images and these values, these laboratory values, with the multispectral images that we have from the drone and also from the satellite. And with that, and with the historical data such as the year of plantation, the variety, we'll try to create as well an artificial intelligence model to feed this platform. And the idea is that, well, in the future, any farmer from the European Union will be able to access this platform, this AI4EU platform. You will go to the tab of agriculture, and you will find in there these models that he will just have to input his data, such as, for example, Sentinel data, that it's open for everybody. So with this data, and for example, with data such as the varieties that he has planted, he will be able to know, I'm generalizing a lot, but he will be able to know how many tons of grapes he will produce by hectare, or he will know if these grapes, because they are so sweet or because they are so acid, he will know if
1 minute, Anna.
One or another, sorry, I'm just finishing. We have as well a visualization platform where the vineyards and Agri agriculture will be able to analyze the images. So that's our main focus that we are working with, to feed this platform with this data that we are collecting, and to create these models that will be useful for agricultures all over Europe. Sorry, Nuria.
Thank you very much. And I know it's very difficult. Just a question for you. You work with a lot of companies in the agri-food sector. And before Giorgio mentioned that most of them have not adopted all these technologies that could provide a high impact on that. Where do you see the main challenge as a barrier to adopt this kind of technologies? Is it computing infrastructure? Is it communications, for example, that in rural areas where many of these activities happen, they don't have bandwidth? Is it the access to data? Is it really managing data from heterogeneous sources? Where do you see the main challenge?
The main challenge, I think, and because we are working with this, with the integration of data for farmers, is first of all the range of age on farmers, because it's an older population. They are not familiarized with this type of technology, so they are not, it's not fearful, but they don't trust in it right now. So we are seeing the change right now because more younger farmers are appearing, and they are, because they study that kind of things on university, they are right now open to apply these kind of things on their fields and to try and to make more profit with it. But still there's this problem most of the times, because they do have the data, they are collecting this data, but they don't know what to do with it. And it's so much data and they don't know, they get lost in it. And it's what we are doing right now. It's trying to help them by creating visualizations for this data, crossing this data so they can analyze it. It's the main problem right now. It's their difficulties because they are gathering this data, they are collecting it already. The problem is working with it, analyzing this data and taking conclusions from it.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. So this bridges the discussion towards Panos Ilias, who is our next speaker. He is working for ILVO, and you have set up an initiative called the Just Connect, if I'm not wrong, and that is a data sharing platform, no? Panos, tell us a bit more about that, because I've seen a lot of use cases using data, exploiting massive amounts of data, but I've not seen so many cases where data sharing is really happening. Do we need it? Who is interested in this? How do farmers do it nowadays? And what are you providing to facilitate this process?
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, can you see my screen? Everything is fine?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Nuria, for the invitation. Today, I'm going to present ILVO, Just Connect data sharing platform, but also share our experience and vision related to the establishment of a common European data space in the agricultural sector. I'm Panos Elias. I'm an engineer, and the last few years, I work at ILVO as an IT business analyst. ILVO is a Flemish research institute for agriculture, fishery, and food linked to the Flemish government. One of ILVO mission is to support the Flemish agri-food community to its digitalization activities, and that includes data sharing, digital sovereignty, and API economy. But why we think that data sharing is a way to support digitization and digitalization? Because first of all, by data sharing, we break data silos, and that can generate added value. And additionally, we believe that all actors in the supply chains, they should have the ability to control the access and the usage of their data. And not only that, they must have the ability to use the data as an economic asset and to get benefit from them. For these reasons, the last few years, ILVO is active at European level in topics related to data, AI, robotics, and we are also members of BDVA. A major objective of the European strategy for data is the development of a common European data spaces. But what exactly is a data space? 2 weeks ago, I had the chance to hear a definition from EC Expert explain that a data space is a system where holders and users can be in contact, knowing under which conditions they can interact. And within the data space, they can develop innovative solutions, AI-based solutions, and trust is the most important characteristics. For the agricultural data space, the European Commission aims to facilitate the sharing and pooling of data for this sector, but also to promote the code of conduct of agricultural data sharing, means how to structure contractual agreements, how we can implement them. At the beginning of September, a very interesting workshop from EC was set up, and the goal was to support the consultation and to provide answers to a number of queries related to major challenge, how to build a common European agricultural data space. Most important conclusions is that value needs to be shared fairly among all agri-food stakeholders and across the whole supply chain, and also that the involvement of the food industry and the food supply chains as a whole including the consumers, is a key strategic success factor. And also that the public and the private sector should work together like we do at Silvo with for Just Connect. And Just Connect is a result of a bottom-up approach. It's an regional element of this European agricultural data space. In 2018, ILVO, but together with companies from the Belgian dairy industry and the Flemish Professional Association of Farmers, decided to work together on a common vision. And that vision, it's the development of a platform able to facilitate the data exchange and use, able to provide new business opportunities in a data-driven ecosystem trusted by all actors. That vision is very close to the definition of the agricultural data space. And the reason behind why the companies decide to invest money in a project and try to do something about that is because they have realized that there are existing technical and legal obstacles, and they need to find a way to establish trust between them. This is something that is missing. Just Connect it's a cloud solution. It provides a set of services that can enable business-to-business data sharing. For example, the data authorization service can give the ability to the data originators or the owners to control the access of their data and proceed to the establishment of contractual agreements, or the clearinghouse service, which allows the participants to monitoring the usage of their data and use those data to build on top their pricing policy or business models. So from one side, we have the providers, the data providers, and the others that can publish their data using APIs. We don't store data in Just Connect. And from the other side, we have the consumers that can use Just Connect API gateway to develop new applications and service. It's a complex effort with a lot of dimensions and challenges. And we have realized that lots of convincing job needs to be done. We have to discuss, share our ideas with the stakeholders, work together. And we have prioritized on the development of practical use cases that can deliver the value early. We need to prove that data sharing can provide value to the actors, support them have gained digital talent because it's something that is needed, but also help them find ways to financing their investments. Right now, a lot of companies in the agri-food sector, they have invested a lot of money transferring the data from on-premise to the cloud, and going there and say, yes, you need to invest more for data sharing is a challenge. You have to explain why, you have to prove that there is a value behind. And Just Connect gain experience help us to also to prioritize on our research and innovation activities, because we try to give answers to questions that are related to the development also of the data space. For example, how individuals and organizations can control their digital identity, or how it is possible to increase data sharing efficiency and trust by using decentralized data sharing services. There are many challenges, a lot of questions. It's a long list, and it's difficult for us to deal it alone. Every year we are more at Just Connect. The team is getting bigger, but we believe that we need to work together with all the actors, not only the actors that exist in the Flemish agri-food community, but also at EU level. And that's why we do have a positive position on new initiatives that try to tackle similar or the same challenges like Gaia-X, or to new initiatives or the new legislative framework that European Commission has decided to publish for data intermediaries like Just Connect. And in parallel, we collaborate together with the Flemish agri-food industry, but also with the Flemish government on various consultations, like that the one that is related to the next step of the EU Code of Conduct. So that's for me. I think I'm I don't have spent all the time, Nuria.
No, that's very good, Panos. In fact, well, you have presented a lot of challenges to achieve such a common data spaces. Just a comment, because checking a bit the programs of the European Commission, I've realized that they will not put money to invest in common data spaces for all the sectors. They will do it for just very concrete specific sectors. One of them is agriculture. Why do you think that they are investing in agriculture and not in other sectors? Where do you see the immediate value of doing data sharing in agriculture? Besides the technical challenges that may arise, but from a business point of view, why do we see that kind of potential value in doing data sharing here?
You're asking me about the Commission or about the industrial players?
Based on your knowledge, why do you think that data sharing is so
from what I have
important?
here from the Commission, they think that the agricultural data space can generate value, and this value is also related to the food safety, and it's also related to the environment. So they believe that data sharing is a way to support Green Deal objectives. That's why I believe they also trying to support initiatives like Just Connect, continue further and try to involve more actors and also the food element in this effort, because it's not in Green Deal is not only the farmers but also the consumers. So it's from farm to fork, and this is what I have understood. That I think it's what the Commission wants from the industrial players, the companies that we are in more, let's say, contact with them daily. They want to see how they can valorize. They want to see how they can use their data, how they can proceed further, how they can create data products. And that's the challenge for the industry.
Thank you very much. You have mentioned something very important, the Green Deal and some aspects that really require the collaboration by all the different stakeholders. I see some questions that I will bring later on to the discussion already in the panel. That's good. Thanks a lot, Panos. Yes, a comment. You have mentioned this report of the workshop on common data spaces for agriculture, and this is the same link that I provided in my presentation before. So if some people have not read the report and want to get access to it, it is in the presentation that I made in the very beginning. So thanks again, Panos. Let's go now to the next speaker, who is Sander Jensen, working from the Wageningen Environmental Research and also a partner in the NIVA project. And now you appear with my name, Sander, Nuria de Lama. So I appear three times. I think that your project brings an important perspective. It's also very much aligned with what Panos mentioned before, and is maybe how important it is public sector and some common goals of the European Union in fostering the adoption of these technologies. In NIVA, you are working very much with the common agricultural policy. Could these new policies be defined in a way that will foster the adoption of data-related technologies? Maybe a motivation to change a bit the way things are done nowadays?
Yeah, thanks, Nuria. I'm sorry for appearing with your name. I don't know how that happens, but it's apparently technology, yeah? So you see how important interoperability is. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Sander Jensen. I work at Wageningen University in Research, where I'm coordinating the NIVA project. And indeed, this is about the public sector. So we go into the public sector, but there are many links with the private sector also, which I will come to. And the NIVA project is related to the Common Agricultural Policy. It's NIVA is an innovation action, which was a response to a call, Digital Solution and E-Tools to Modernize the CAP. It's led by Wageningen, but the crucial part of NIVA is that it has 9 paying agencies involved, which pay the farmers across the member states. So these are the agencies paying the subsidies to the farmers, where the farmers have to supply proof that they are in line with the regulations as set in the Common Agricultural Policy. We have a total of 27 partners, as also these paying agencies are supported by numerous technical partners. The challenges that NIVA is trying to absorb, and this is where it links to digital innovation in the agricultural sector, and where also data plays an important role, is to absorb innovations to simplify the CAP governance. So you can imagine that paying a farmer, and I will get to that, it's as a whole process of checks and balances, whether that's all happening in the right way before you can pay a subsidy, to reduce the burden for the farmers through technology, and reducing the gap between Ajax data use and potential broader data users. Now, the Ajax, that's the payment system. So when you see Ajax on my slide, that's an abbreviation. It doesn't matter, but just think of payment system that's running within the paying agencies. And the data out of that could be a useful resource to other things. Now, we're doing this project, and they made it extra challenging because the European Commission decided to change the CAP, which is the current negotiations as they're ongoing, with a more flexible system, leaving more up to the member states, where the member states make strategic plans on their own, but also decide how they monitor that themselves. Hence, this is a policy shift from compliance towards results and performance. And so the digital technologies that we are testing in this project shouldn't only work for the CAP of the past, so the common agricultural policy that we have now, but also for the CAP of the future. And this is, of course, where the interest of most of the paying agencies is. Now, to tell a bit about the transition that we try to very simply show here. So you could say on the left-hand side of the slide, you see the old system, where you start on the really left with a pre-population of the application. So the farmer makes an application for a subsidy that's pre-filled with last year's data. He can then improve it in this top 8 application. It's checked by the paying agencies. If they have doubts, they send someone on the spot check, and then they make a payment decision with a payment, the penalty, and blah, blah. Now, what will happen, what's the vision for the future, and this is where NIVA is active with new technologies, is that this system becomes more of a regular updating system. So the farmer makes a claim as much as possible already pre-filled, but also pre-filled with that year's data. So by satellite, you find out what crops are on the field, you propose that to the farmer can say that's correct or not correct, he makes a change, and then instead of having a penalty, you could say, please improve your information, and that way you can have a regular monitoring system. So that's the circle on the right side that you're seeing, and it should help to also get to a broader reuse of the Ajax data. Now, NIVA as a project trials 9 of these technologies, and they have a different focus. So some of them are focused more on the farmers, making life easier for the farmers. Some of them are focused more on making life easier for the paying agencies, and some of them are focused more on agri environmental interests or other societal interests, as we call it here. Now, I can't go through all 9 of them. You can see here an overview of where they sort of are, but I wanted to go as an example of the topic, so this data-driven innovation, I wanted to go in more detail in the agri-environmental one, and then highlight the topic of also how does this interoperability and harmonization really work in practice. So with this agri-environmental one, we first want to highlight this workshop we did in 5th of February in Paris, just before we started with all this lockdowns stuff, which was on operationalizing agri-climatic and agri-environmental indicators for the future CAP. So how would we, if we want to make sure that farmers contribute more, let's say, towards a future environmental sustainability of Europe, how can we motivate them, measure it, and quantify it a bit? So this is what all this is about. This is also one of the test cases in NIVA, and it's led by the French paying agency. And here you see the current setup that we have in mind, which is that you combine the data from the satellites with external data, with the data on the parcels, the Ajax data. You make a data preparation based on the Center for CAP toolbox, but then you also link in, and I think here it becomes interesting, you link in, for example, in this picture here, these FMIS systems, so the Farm Management Information Systems, to then finally calculate per parcel an indicator of environmental performance. Could be carbon, could be biodiversity, could be nutrients. And in this way, you can make a new way of doing this CAP performance. The FMIS one, it's the interesting one because there the link with the private sector becomes more important, of course, and also with the farmer. What data does he want to provide? What form does this data come in? So you could say in the old system, the paying agency could do more or less everything by itself with the aid application and the subsidy request. and with the satellites, but now they need also this link with the farm management information systems. So, so what we found in this workshop is that these these IACS data are very valuable to do the assessment of agri-environmental indicator, but they are not ready for analysis. I'll talk more about that in a minute. We need to still have processes in place to make relevant agri-environmental indicators, and also that needs to be done with all stakeholders. So the private sector needs to be involved to see what's possible to share with this data, but also farmers in a way that it really helps them, these indicators. The indicators need to be relevant for the farmer, and that means they don't need to be about the farmer. So it doesn't need to be, something that doesn't have a meaning for the farmer, but ideally it would also be something that helps him to manage the farm or motivates him to do better, him or her. And in this way, make sure that the agricultural sector benefits, and it's not just monitoring to get money from the member states paying agency. And finally, the performance management reflects multi-annual land management. So we need now the payment systems really year by year, but now we need to, if we want to do these agri-environmental indicators, we need to go to multi-annual. Now, to highlight a small thing on this multi-annual thing is the point of this crop coding. So we'll just highlight here one part of what all these IACS systems covers. They cover crops for the arable sector. And you can see here there's many other issues. But the point with the crop coding is that if you look across Europe, what crop codes are being used, and here you see work that Dominique Laurent at IGN did, you can see that every member state on the left table has many different crop codes or codes for crops, and they use a different one per member state. Now, these are not harmonized. They're all different. They have all different length and size and all this. So, but we looked at NIVA then what could be a common crop list that we could deploy across European paying agencies to make sure that if we want to go for environmental performance over the years and follow that, we are using a stable list of crops. So we looked at all the ones, the crop lists that are available, and you see on the right side, you see that there are a lot of them. So now we are trying to see how can we best combine them and map them one to the other so that we have a good list of what, a good recommendation in a way of what would be the best way forward to get to the standardized crop list for paying agencies to use, but also then to link to farm management information systems and all these type of things. Now, I want to close with this one. Yeah, I'm almost there, Noah. So it's so I want to close with this one, that NIVA will work in the future. Now, this was just an example of something we found with these crop lists, and I hope that makes it practical, but also sees, what the stakeholder interactions around them are and what sort of questions we have. We want to go for, we want to do more of these activities, and here you have some that we have in mind. We look at two ways that it is data sharing or data innovation. One is data from the IACS systems towards other users, but also data coming into the IACS systems, to these payment systems. And I just mentioned some products that are upcoming or have been, but there will be more we will do more webinars on data sharing. But also we have deliverables coming up on legal issues which differ across the EU, good practices and recommendations on harmonization, and a sort of profile of priority data sets for member states to be published. With that, I will close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sander. I like a lot because I always talk about IT providers and then farmers, but you have made very clear that there are lots of stakeholders that need to collaborate, including public sector, and the case of the Common Agriculture Policy is really an important one that brings public sector on board. So very interesting, and maybe I would like to make a question to the previous speaker, to Panos, while the next speaker, who is Arne Berre, prepares himself. So Panos, there was a very concrete question for you. Thank you for your presentation. What do you mean by data centralized model APIs? And how is this aligned with the DJAS Connect platform with existing initiatives, data models and standards? Maybe you can provide a quick answer while Arne starts sharing his screen.
Yeah, the data model is decentralized, so we don't store data. The data continue to exist in different IT platforms to the providers and the consumers. Decentralized data services are services that do not exist in one platform. I will try to explain this simple. We're not in this position right now in Just Connect because we provide centralized services to facilitate data sharing, but we're working with partners for this scope.
Mhm. Thanks a lot for the quick answer. Then I would like to welcome Arne Berra. He's working for Sintef. He is involved also in the DEMETER project as a responsible one for standards, and he was one of the main players in the Data Bio project, which was the lighthouse project of the Data Value PPP on the bioeconomy with some use cases in agriculture. Arne, I need to make some changes to the agenda and reduce a bit the time that was assigned to the next speakers. I wouldn't like to leave the farmer's view without time, because I think that's a very complementary part for this workshop today. And I've been told that we need to close the workshop at 3:30 sharp. So do you think that you can make it in 5 minutes? I know it's a challenge, but again, as I mentioned, the idea
Whatever you
is to create
say,
some teasers.
that's fine. You say 5 minutes?
Let's go for that.
5 minutes is fine. Okay,
Thank you.
so my focus will be on how we can achieve interoperability and innovation using semantic information models and open services and APIs. And I'll use an example here. We have in the DEMETER project of the digital cow. As we heard before, it's not a challenge to collect data. We have a lot of data we are collecting in all of the different agriculture areas. So this is from livestock, where we now have a lot of sensors associated with each individual cow. We have milking robots that are providing a lot of data for the milking of each individual cow. So there is a lot of data. In addition, we have data about the field. If you look into the farmer's point of view, our vision here is to create a farmer's dashboard with all of the relevant information and decision support services. Here, an example of dairy farmers. Everything about the farm operation in the milk production, the current milk production, but also prediction about the future milk productions based on the collected data and machine learning, AI analytics on this. So this is what we want to achieve. We have looked into how we can go forward, relating it to the technologies we have heard about in the first talk, and how we can essentially have a pipeline that you see to the left here. It's the EBDV reference model with the pipeline with data acquisition, data preparation, storage, analytics, and visualization. It applies also very well to the recent AI PPP reference model that you might have seen from the new AI focus. It's the same pipelines, but of course then we have introducing the cycle of machine learning with the model training and verification as part of the analytics. Essentially what we have experienced in previous projects that we bring forward, like the Data Bio project, where we have been focusing on how to instantiate this generic pipeline. This is an example of data collection using knowledge representation, knowledge graphs, and linked data. So we see an instance of this that can be reused, and it's actually being reused now in the DEMETER project. I will not talk about the individual part here, but the principle. But we also have a pipeline instance for IoT data and sensor data, showing how we are doing this with the sensor data, as well as for spatial data with Earth observation and geospatial data. So all of these pipelines exist with various alternative components. There are still a number of things to consider though, and in particular, I would like to go a little bit back in time for those of you that have been involved in the European interoperability framework discussions. You will recognize these levels of interoperability. It's not only the bottom technical interoperability, but it's a semantic interoperability, which again is put in the context of legal interoperability, organizational interoperability, and the political context. We see that to the left. We see how different organizations, being administration, public administration, businesses, farms, would interoperate on all of these levels. So one picture that I have from a standard that was done by the CEN TC287, also supported by ISO TC211 and related to the EIF, shows interoperability on all of these levels, that there are many different aspects of technical interoperability, which of course needs to be supported of semantics in all of this before it's put into the organizational context. Another important aspect to achieve interoperability is to not rely only on the technology level and do technical specification, but to be sure that we can create platform neutral information models, of course, but also service models, including APIs on all of these levels. So previous work in standards in the ISO 19119, TC211 on geospatial services demonstrates how we can create platform neutral models that have platform specific models mappings, so that it's possible to actually interoperate across different digital platforms going through platform neutral models. So we see the opportunity, but also the need to address this when we go into this example I showed first. So one of the things we are looking at as one of the partners in the European project is John Deere, that has developed an ecosystem based on APIs for a lot of the access to farmers' data on their farm equipment. So on the developer side of John Deere, there is a lot of APIs for accessing data. And we see with respect to innovation that it's actually a rapidly growing developer community around this. I think John Deere argues that the current corona situation, people sit home and they start to explore this. So we see that APIs is actually growing and is part of, say, the opportunities we have to use. What we also have done in the dairy cow context, in the Nordic countries, there has been a development of a Nordic cattle data exchange, which deals with the problem of the farm management systems interacting with milk recording organizations through defining a common data model and also an interface for sharing in a data hub across. This has been brought into the standard discussions of ICAR, which is the global standard for livestock data. So they are hosting activities of this. But we see that it's a Nordic, between the Nordic countries, it's Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark that are involved here. This might be a contribution to the new common European agriculture data space. Obviously, the ontologies and semantics are relevant. There can be different implementations. So this is again back to these different technologies. There can be different platforms supporting this. And this is what we need to understand and explore further. So one of the planned activities that we have now with some of the ongoing projects like DEMETER, but also the IOF 2020 and Atlas and OpenDI is to run a workshop series on semantic agri data and service interoperability starting by the end of this month and into March next year. Relating it to the input from this workshop we heard about on the Common European Agriculture Data Space with some of the large platform projects, but also to involve now the agri-standard communities like ICAR and others on the list here, relate to the ICT communities, and perhaps others. So if any one of you who are attending this are interested to contribute or participate to this, you can contact me as we now are planning the details of this workshop series. So thank you. That was my last slide.
Thanks a lot. So this is an invitation for anyone interested in the topic. Please contact Arne. I think as all the other speakers have mentioned, it's very important to collaborate with each other. And maybe Arne, we close your intervention with a question. I think this one is good for you. On the chat, basically related to data sharing, are you aware of the SOLID initiative by WFPC? Are you working
yes,
with them, somehow
well, this is from the World Wide Web Consortia, and it's interesting that there are different approaches that we need to discuss from a technical point of view, because part of this is how to deal with authentication, authorization, and access to common data spaces. We see different architectural approaches for data spaces. We have bilateral interaction facilities like the IDS, the International Data Spaces, which basically is a broker for interaction between, say, bilateral data exchanges. And we have this V3C initiative that is a more sharing approach. So this is part of the discussion we will have on this workshop, essentially, to get these different technology representation and approaches presented, so we can understand how they play and can interact together in the common space in the future.
Thank you, Arne. So I think there is a very good bridge, and then unfortunately, since we don't have time today, we will have those other workshops to discuss specifically about those topics. So it's very good. And but then thanks for this, and I would like to use some of the questions of the audience also to welcome the next two speakers, Luisa Volpe from the World Farmers Organization and then Rita from Coldiretti. They bring the farmers' perspective to the discussion today. And yeah, just to start with their interventions, because they are not showing slides, I would really like to repeat some of the questions that we have here that are quite tricky. And Jack is telling us, I hope that somebody will raise the issue of business models as critical success factor. I'm really interested in that because finally that's very important. So do you really see this as the main bottleneck for adoption of all these technologies? Why people want to do data sharing? What can be achieved with that? Where is the business model and where is the business value for the different stakeholders, and including and especially for the farmers? And then this is very much related to another question that has many votes. And are we currently able to identify the value and the main value flows in agri-food data sharing? So very much related or quite similar to the previous question. So Luisa, I don't know if you want to start your intervention giving an answer directly to these questions that are so important. And for sure, thank you very much for accepting the invitation to be with us.
Nuria, thank you very much for sharing the invitation with us. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and listen to the technologies available to the farmers. You know, as WFO, we are a global farmer organization, and our membership is worldwide based. So we have members from Europe, from North America, from Oceania, but then also from other countries that are less, let's say, less developed, especially in terms of technology access and transfer to the farmers. So it's participating in your events. It's always a learning opportunity for me, Nuria, and I'm particularly thankful to you, also on behalf of the overall World Farmers Organization. I've been listening with a lot of interest to my fellow panelists who spoke before me, because I was actually trying to translate what they were saying from a farmer point of view. As a global organization, I see a lot of opportunities for the farmers, not only in Europe, but everywhere in the world. And possibly the models and the technologies available in Europe, which is the most advanced area of the world in this track. Our hope is that they will become available also to other regions of the world, because there is a big gap between Europe and North America and the rest of the world, Latin America, Africa, and Asia, above all. From the farmer's point of view, I think that beyond the many opportunities that we see, there are a number of challenges that keep, unfortunately, the gap between available technologies and farmers' access to technology still too deep. And probably the reason stands with the fact that most of the times farmers are not consulted fully in the research and innovation projects and processes. And what really happens sometimes is that technology is available for goals that farmers are not really have not really asked for. You know, farmers are pulled by the market, so their Their objective is always to respond to the market needs, increase productivity, increase income at farm level, and pursue the sustainability in its three components that includes the viability of the farming business for the farmers themselves. So if farmers don't really see a convenient opportunity in terms of business, they are not going to use it. This is the first challenge. The second challenge is in the use of data, for example, because when the farmers have access to a technology, as we saw in the dairy sector, is very much used for monitoring the health of the animals, but I can add that also in soil crops, this technology is very, very important to also monitor the health of the soils, which is actually the first asset for a farmer. But then farmers are not given the opportunity to get educated and trained on how to use this data. And what really has a sense for them to access the data and aggregate it in a way that they can really exploit it at farm level. So the issue of managing data is something that should be really shared more fairly along the overall value chain, because when someone has the ability to access data, is also the ability to influence the consumers. And it's important that farmers as well can have access to the aggregated data that really allow them to enhance the sustainability of their own farms. I would like to bring an example of the New Zealand model, where government, the research centers on agriculture and the national farmers organizations work hand in hand in the research in agriculture. And research try to respond to the farmers' needs while the government invests to implement the right infrastructure for the farmers and for the research sector. And there is a 100% integration between farmers' asks and research responses. And in fact, the farmers feel really supported and backed up, both by the government, so by the public sector, and the private sector, the research. In my experience, I think that is the most advanced model that I would like to really see in other environments too, because especially in developing countries where farmers are not even recognized in structures, farmers' organizations exist, but the public sector or the donors don't even consider them when they have to plan infrastructures or make research goals for the agricultural sector, and make decisions that can be of political level, economic level, environmental level. Sometimes farmers are not even taken into consideration, are just the target of those projects and programs. So as you see in the world, there are a number of realities that are really diverse. But I think the best way to go should be to work all together in a multi-stakeholder approach, where the public sector, the research sector, the private sector, and the farmers, through their organized structures, can really work together for the well-being and the sustainability part. This is my wish. And I really hope that with the projects that DEMETER is putting in place, maybe we can really go towards this achievement and become an example to be replicated in other areas of the world. Thanks,
Thank
Nuria.
you very much, Luisa. So one of your recommendations from the World Farmers Organization could be to explore this model used in New Zealand and check if that could work in Europe. That could be a recommendation from your side. So we get something very concrete.
The World Farmers Organization is at disposal to make the liaison, of course.
That's very good. So thank you, Luisa. Very, very concrete comment for today. And maybe you have mentioned things that are quite interesting. And sometimes I think about this distribution of value. You know, when I have heard our colleagues talking about the technical achievements and the technical platforms to do data sharing, they always mention motivations for the farmer, or something that could sound as a good motivation for a farmer, like increased profitability, better soil, better production. So in principle, everything sounds good. So why is not so easy to see for the farmers the value of data? Do you really think that implementing these technologies, some other stakeholders will get more value than the farmers? Farmers will get a bit of value, but the other stakeholders will get even more value than them?
The point is that farmers farmers own the data, but sometimes they don't own the education or training parts to aggregate the data and give value to the data. So what happens is that farmers have the data, but then this data is managed in other points of the value chain, and they are not shared back with the farmers for making a sustainable use. Mm-hmm. So the point is not, it's actually not even the data itself, it's the aggregated data that makes the difference. Because with that, then farmers are able to, are first of all aware of what they're doing. Then they can make better decisions for their own profitability, but also for the sustainability of the overall business they are managing. They can also better decide on the price of the product at farm gates, and they can better improve the sustainability of their own activity. So data is actually something that can really influence a lot the choices of an economic actor. And what farmers would need more is to be much more aware and trained and educated of the value of this aggregated data. This is what it's really missed, as far as I see, of course.
So thank you, Luisa. Let's see if Rita has the same opinion or can bring some additional points to the table. Rita, how do you see it? You represent also farmers, in this case, more from a national point of view. How is the situation in your country? Do you agree with all the statements made by Luisa? Are there no things that you would like to share with us?
Yes, I fully agree with Luisa. Even in Italy, the problem is the value of data along the value chain that is not shared fully from farmers. And I think here the importance of a farmers association like Coldiretti, that is the main farming organization at European and Italian level that can make the difference, bringing and providing solutions itself, as the DEMETER. There's another satellite application that Coldiretti provided to its farmers, but also the presence in H2020 project like DEMETER, but also Smart Agri Hubs or IPM decisions, which we are, but also the ability of Coldiretti to make a training towards farmers, to being them available to exploit fully the data they provide. I just would like to conclude with one sentence that a farmer told me once. We have to say to tech providers that moving data is not like moving milk. So one key elements is to be able to make farmers to talk with tech providers. Coldiretti and many farming associations are making this part, providing training towards farmers to make them aware of the value of digital solution and of data, but also tech providers should make a step towards farmers to make them to make more easier for farmers to understand what they say.
Mm-hmm. I take that comment is a very important one. So maybe not just putting all the products out there or all the solutions to do things, but also working directly with the farmer in elaborating the solutions and making sure that farmers understand how these solutions are created so that they can understand what is the result based on the input.
Exactly.
Very nice comment, Rita. Unfortunately, the organization is telling me that they need the Zoom link for another session, so I would really stay a lot of time talking to you. It's very interesting to check the technical solutions, the point of view of farmers. I think we still need to discuss very much about all those points. For sure, we will organize more workshops and more events on these topics. I would like to thank all the speakers for being with us today. I know that you are all very busy people, but it's been a pleasure sharing the views with you. And also to all the attendees, we had a very good amount of attendees today. And just to tell you that all the presentations will be available, that the recorded version of the webinar will be available, that you can also get the contacts of our colleagues through the WOBA platform. So I'm sure that many of you would like to ask more things to Rita, to Luisa, and to the colleagues. And then this is possible through the WOBA platform still in the next hours. So thanks again for everyone. And have a very good day, all of you. And let's keep on talking on this and trying to solve more challenges in the sector. Thanks a lot for this.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you all.
Grazie.
Thank you very much.